Joining us right now on the Squawk Newsline, Lanier law firm founder Mark Lanier, who represented the 22 women and their families who won a lawsuit in July against Johnson & Johnson in which the company was charged a debt of $4.69 billion. Mark, thank you for joining us today.
Always a pleasure.
It's been a long time since we've talked to you, but this case is certainly front and center when it comes to what the markets are watching and what so many consumers are watching, too. I take it you saw last night's interview where Jim Cramer was talking to Alex Gorksy about all this. What did you think?
Well, first of all, Alex Gorksy is a good gentleman who was an ex-Marine, to be commended for his service for the country. He's got a good heart and he's got a good mind, I believe. But I believe he's also woefully short of some of the information that needs to be provided to him so that he's got a better understanding of what not only went on in the 70s, but what's gone on since.
Let's break that down into two pieces. First of all, let's talk about the product right now. He went on the offensive and said that they are sure that there are no problems with their talcum powder, not only with the talc, but they're also convinced there is no asbestos in that product right now. He kind of tied it back to the last 15 years and what they've been watching. Are you convinced at that point, first of all?
No, I'm not convinced. I don't share his conviction. I think that the testing by some independent labs, when the right testing techniques are used, demonstrate the presence of asbestos in very minute quantities, but present nonetheless. And there's a debate that we have with J&J and their experts about what is defined as asbestos, what is, what isn't, does it meet the measurements, et cetera. But I believe that this is still a product that I certainly won't let in my household.
You would not today still let it in your household?
No.
You think talc?
No.
Mark, are you sure talc itself, without asbestos, are you sure talc is perfectly harmless? Let's say zero asbestos.
Joe, I don't think you can have talc without asbestos.
Well, even if you do, even the molecular structure of talc itself, in some animal studies, it's unclear, whether that has some carcinogenic qualities, without asbestos at all. But you're hanging all your legal claims on the presence of some amount of asbestos, is what you're saying.
Yes, Joe. I believe it's the asbestos within the talc that causes the health problems we most directly see. There is fibrous talc itself that may cause the problem, but I'm not sure that the jury's in on that. I know the jury's in on the asbestos angle.
Mark, let's go back just to this idea of independent researchers that you are citing and what Alex Gorksy was saying last night. He was citing not only Johnson & Johnson documentation on this, but he goes to independent studies too, Harvard and other places where these studies have been done. I think probably at best you can say it's murky. Would you agree with that?
Well, I wouldn't, because if you look at some of the independent studies that Mr. Gorksy references, for example, the Colorado School of Mines is one that was used by the company. The Colorado School of Mines also said that the proper technique to find it is going to be a pre-concentration technique, and the company chose not to do that. So if the company had used the proper technique, even the company admitted it would show asbestos in their talc. And that's in their documents. And so you get these independent sources that are using inadequate testing techniques, and they don't find the asbestos. If they use the right testing techniques, they do. So Rutgers finds it, Alice Blount finds it. Lots of people affiliated in some way or another with J&J find the presence of asbestos.
The regulators, he went on to say, side with J&J on this.
Well, and again, I've got to tell him that Mr. Gorksy has got, if he looks at certain documents, he's going to come up with that opinion.
Well, why aren't the rates higher? Why aren't the cancer rates higher if asbestos is all over that? This is the same thing we talk about with cell phones, Mark. If you just give me a number for how much more likely someone who uses Johnson baby powder is of getting cancer, give me even a really small number, and then look in the general population. Use that as your test case. Why aren't you seeing a much higher incidence of the cancer that you're talking about? Because it still doesn't seem like it'd have to be a very small number and very hard to prove that it's related to the baby powder.
Well, Joe, if you'll look, you'll see that there are 20,000 American women each year diagnosed with ovarian cancer.
Seems small compared to the number of people. It seems very small compared to the people that are diagnosed with all kinds of cancer with the that isn't necessarily because of baby powder, Mark. It seems like a
Agreed.
It seems like a very small number.
200 million, by J&J's numbers, 200 million baby bottoms in America among our population were powdered with this. So you're going to have some measure of cancer. And 20,000 cases of ovarian cancer is a large amount. Now, I'm not saying all of those are caused by the talc.
Mark, you've won a number of major billion-dollar lawsuits, or at least settled for billion-dollar numbers before. As you've looked at this stock, it's off $40 billion. I know you're not a stock picker, but do you see liability for this company that comes even close to that kind of number?
No. To be honest with you, I don't. I think this litigation can be resolved and the problems can be resolved much less than $40 billion. So it serves my purposes as a litigant to say, yes, get their attention, keep driving the stock down. But as an honest answer, I've got to tell you,
Mark, 20,000 divided by hundreds of billions, figure out that number, 20,000 divided by hundreds of millions. And then tell me what the incidence is in the control group, the general population, and I'll bet you it's the same. I mean, that's a specious argument you're making, Mark. 20,000 is a big number, but not compared to 100 million. It's a fraction. You got to go out how many decimal points to get to 20,000?
Joe, you don't have a control group. Joe,
the control group is the 100 million that are using it versus the normal population. That's okay. What is the normal incidence of ovarian cancer with people who don't use baby powder?
If you go into some third world countries where they don't use baby powder, you have a very low incidence of ovarian cancer. Much
lower than 20,000 divided by 100 million, hundreds of millions. I don't know. That's why they talk about the science.
So many complications. There's so many complications on this that what you've got to do, nobody disputes the fact that asbestos causes ovarian cancer.
Right.
IARC knows it. Everybody knows it. So the question is there asbestos present? If so, don't use it. If not, fine. Do what you choose.
Mark, I don't want to be here to relitigate the case. What I'm interested in is, from a business perspective at this point, is going forward, how this company goes forward, whether it goes forward, what that means. And I'm fascinated by your view that, and I appreciate your candor, that this $40 billion that's been knocked off the company, you don't think is appropriate. In terms of additional lawsuits out there and additional liability, what does that look like to you as a lawyer and expert in this field?
Well, it all depends on how the company handles it. If the company handles the litigation right, it's extremely manageable for a company the size and strength of J&J. If the company continues to handle it wrongly, then I think the company is going to continue to have problems that cost it 2, 3, 4, 5 times what it should. And so the company needs to sit down and have some serious litigation strategy on this. And if they do, I think that... do
you think they should take this product off the shelves, by the way?
Yeah, I would take the stock off. I would absolutely. Look, they make a baby powder with cornstarch that's 100% safe, that is just as effective, if not more effective. They have no reason to be selling the talc.
Hey, Mark, let me ask you this. I'm listening, and I'll admit I'm listening as a skeptic, but let me walk through what you just said. You think the company should change its strategy. Here's what Alex Gorski said to Jim Cramer last night. He's looking at the lawsuits that have been brought. He said the more recent cases, really over the last 12, 18, or even 24 months, there's been about 40 in total. About 35 of them have gone our way, either through decision or appeal, dismissal. And the 5 outstanding, those are also under appeal. I assume the 5 outstanding includes your case. So you're basically saying you'd take a settlement from them rather than wait and see how this goes on appeal? Is that, am I wrong in interpreting that's what you're saying here?
Oh, Becky, every case ultimately settles. I don't know that I've ever had a case that goes all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court and then is paid in full. Every case finds resolution. At some point, it's a business decision for the litigants as well as for the company, and smart minds can prevail on that. So obviously, there needs to be a business solution. This is a business problem at its core, not just a litigation issue. And all litigation winds up being a business decision.
Do talc miners have a higher incidence of any type of cancer, Mark?
It's interesting. The answer is, according to some studies, yes, some studies, no. So it depends on how the studies are done. But remember, Joe, that the talc miners are wearing protective gear. They've got the respirators and the masks and all of that. I haven't seen many women wearing protective gear when they dust themselves down with baby powder.
This is crazy that so no one can get a definitive answer on whether talc has asbestos. Because that's the leap that you're making. I don't know if you've got the numbers in terms of incidents where you can make a case that there's causation here, Mark, but you don't. It seems like you don't even need to get these big awards. All you need to do is prove that is at least show that you can't prove there's no asbestos present. You don't even need to show that there's a higher incidence of ovarian cancer from people that use it. That's a little bit scary and dangerous to make that leap, I think.
Well, Joe, I don't think that I would agree with you there. In fact, I know I wouldn't, because I don't have any doubt. We've tested 80+ containers of this stuff, had an independent lab test it, and they've found asbestos present in 70% of the containers.
How recently was that, Mark?
60 to 70%.
How recently was that?
That's still being done. That was done as recently as a month ago, was the last container tested. And some of these containers, originally we were told, yes, but the containers got contaminated in someone's attic or something. Then we said, okay, give us some samples from the J&J Museum, and we'll test that.
But this was all old talc, just to be clear. You're not testing talc off the shelves today.
We have tested some bottles off the shelf today as well. Some of them show the presence of asbestos. Some of them do not.
Some of them do, though, you're suggesting.
Yes, absolutely.
Hey, I just wanted to ask you, if you go back and look at the conversations you had with Merck around Vioxx at the time, $27 billion came off of that market cap as well. And the larger issue was whether that was going to impact the brand and other product. When you think about J&J and the large consumer brand that represents, given your experience with other companies, how much of an impact do you think it has beyond the specific product, in this case, obviously the talc?
I don't think that it's got as big of an effect as the world seems to think it does. There are Johnson & Johnson products I use. I used one this morning. They're a company that make a lot of good products. They make some life-saving products. They've got a lot on the ball, and they can stand on those strengths. I don't have any problem taking Tylenol. I don't have any problems with a lot of their really good products. If they've got a product that's defective, I've got a problem with it. So I take issue with the talc. I take issue with their metal-on-metal hips. But that's just the nature of the way this goes.